Welcome back, APUSH students. Today is Chapter 6 of the American Pageant, titled The Duel for North America. If you don't have the American Pageant, it's fine because the content is still going to be the same. I'm going to be going over all the key terms and notes for this chapter that helped me get a 5, so I encourage you to take notes as well. First is Samuel de Champlain. He was a French soldier who helped colonize New France, which is up towards Canada. He is known as the father of New France. New France was the French colonization efforts in Quebec, which is, in Canada. It was the foundation of modern-day Canada and led to competition with Britain and Spain over North America and the continent as a whole. The beaver trade, this is what supplied the French colonists economically. They sold beaver skins up in Canada to the natives. It was the main attraction for people to immigrate to New France because it was a good economic opportunity for the settlers. Coureurs des Bois, I think it's called, were early colonists of New France who came for the beaver trade specifically. They were some of the first colonists of New France who established the land by giving it names and French culture. Jesuits were French Catholic missionaries in New France. In their efforts to try and convert American Indians to Catholicism, they made important exploration advancements in New France, and they also established kind of the better relations with the Native Americans in comparison to Spain and the English settlers. New Orleans was a French fortified outpost in Louisiana, so you can see they weren't only up in Canada, but they also tried to get their ways into the modern-day United States. It helped to block Spanish people from infiltrating the Gulf of Mexico and protect French imperial efforts, but they eventually lost this. The Treaty of Utrecht was a peace treaty signed in 1713 between Spain, France, and Britain. It signified the British victory in war against Spain and France, their alliance together, and spelled doom to a lot of French settlements. Britain also won some trade rights that created conflict between Spanish and British traders. So you can see how through, diplomacy, Britain was kind of showing that they had the upper hand in this fight for North America. George Washington, everyone knows George Washington, a Virginiaman put in charge of a militia, the George Washington. He was defeated in his efforts to try and take the Ohio River Valley from the French, which angered the French and sparked the French and Indian War. The French and Indian War is a huge kind of event that you can organize your thoughts around from pre-revolution, post-revolution, the shift from Unit 1 to Unit 2, all that. And of course, the French and Indian War, the Fourth Anglo-French War, the most, I would say, consequential one, you can put it that way. The hostility from this war bled into the 7 Years' War, which was the biggest war the world has ever seen to that point. The 7 Years' War part of it, the more international part away from North America, isn't as important to APUSH. But French and Indian part of it, the fighting on the continent, the New World, that's important. 7 Years' War, the biggest war to its day, sparked by Anglo-French conflict. The amount of French effort poured into the European theater of the war allowed Britain to secure its empire in America. So France was a major player in sort of the international part of the 7 Years' War. So they had to defer a lot of their attention away from colonization efforts, and that allowed Britain to capitalize, gain a lot of land, gain a lot of economic opportunities, and really put themselves ahead of everyone else in terms of the North American continent. The Albany Congress was a 1754 colonial congress in New York with 7 delegates. Its goal was to unite the colonists and help the colonists fight against France, but it only further highlighted the different visions that the British Crown and the colonists had over independence because they conflicted over how to go about fighting France. Regulars were soldiers of the British Army. They were the forces that helped fight in the French and Indian War. General Edward Braddock, the general of the British Army fighting against the French and Indians, he suffered many defeats which allowed the French and Indians to gain strength. So the French and Indian War did not start off well for the British colonists. William Pitt was a newly appointed British general of the forces fighting against the French and Indians. He used new and better strategies for fighting, so he won crucial battles in various places, and he kind of turned the tide back in the British favor in the French and Indian War. Battle of Quebec was a battle between British forces and French and Indian forces. The British won, and this was famous and a very consequential battle. The French control over Canada was gone, and it took just 4 years for French power in all of North America to just be completely eradicated, and the British took over the continent. Pontiac's uprising was an Indian uprising in 1763 in the Ohio River Valley. The uprising was brutally defeated and sent a signal to the British that they had to stabilize relations with the American Indians, or else things would turn into chaos in their colonial settlements. This led to conflicts between land-hungry colonists and the British, who wanted to avoid war with the American Indians. This, of course, turns into the Proclamation Line in 1763, because the colonists wanted to spread, but the people in power were like, let's hold on a little bit because it's going to get dangerous, and that's, of course, what happened. Proclamation of 1763, a line drawn to prevent colonists from expanding westward. This is a pretty famous legal document, I guess you can call it. This made the colonists very angry towards the British Crown because they were blocked from expanding, and they really wanted to expand. So they defied they defied the order and tried expanding anyway. This was a sign that British control over the colonists would not go well, because even though they tried to exert their control, the colonists just wouldn't listen. They wanted what was for them, and they didn't care what people said. And that's a wrap. I'll see you in the next chapter, and goodbye.